Hey everyone, and welcome to Sasquatch Theory. In this episode, we have a wonderful guest who wanted to share her cryptid and UFO encounters that she experienced from Indiana, Kentucky, and even down into Florida. Here on Sasquatch Theory, we like to explore all possible theories, and it's good to think outside of the box, especially with a topic that no one can really seem to wrap their mind around. I think it's good for people to report their Sasquatch encounters, especially if they feel like it's tied into the alien phenomenon. I feel like each story holds a small clue that we can hold on to and later use to gauge and determine the activity. Alright guys, let's dive into Sherry's cryptid animal and paranormal alien encounters. Alright Sherry, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. How are you doing today?
I'm fine. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing excellent. Sherry, if you would, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from, and if you would, go into your encounters after that.
Okay. My name is Sherry, and I'm from right now Indiana. Um, some of the things occurred here in Indiana. I can start with those if you want me to.
Yeah, just do it in a timeline and just go through each instance one after another.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, one of the first things that happened, I'll start off with the cryptids. um,
Okay, yeah, just
and-
tell us where you were at, what you were doing, and describe all the details that you can think of.
okay. Well, back in the 80s, we were able to stay out till like midnight on the weekends, or during the summertime, as long as we were like in the front yard or the backyard or whatever. um and I don't know, I was probably about 12 or so, and I have four sisters, so we were all outside and in the front yard. And you remember those old sewer, um I don't know, the tunnels, you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, my other sisters had went in, and I was out there standing on the porch, just kind of daydreaming, I guess. And I happened to look, I seen the one at the end of the road, and it kind of moved up. And I really don't know what I thought it was that was coming out of it, but I kept looking over there, and it looked like a big head. So I was thinking that it might have been like a rat or something, you know what I mean? So I'm watching this thing, and I happened to notice, like, all I really could see was the head until it got in like the middle of the road. And this thing was very long, but it almost looked like it was belly crawling. And then ears came up. Um, to me, it looked like a wolf. And I mean, I took off running in the house and I got my dad, and we come back out there, and it was like totally gone. But this thing was, I mean, half of the road. But like I said, when I first seen it, I only seen head, but I think it was the way it was. It just looked like it was belly crawling.
What color was it, and how long was the hair?
It was grayish black, and I mean I could see gray hairs in it. But the face of it, the snout was, I mean, it wasn't like real long, but it was long enough to where at first I thought it was like a big rat. So, and until the ears popped up, that's when it looked more like a dog. And I'm like, it just kind of scared me when I seen how large it was.
Mm-hmm. So this was
But
by
yeah,
a culvert drainage.
yes,
Okay.
yeah. So that was the first thing that happened. Um, then there was a time, it was pretty much the same place. It was between Evansville, Indiana, and St. Wendell. It's kind of a lot of farmland out there, hilly roads, Um, but we went up to my daughter's house, who lived up there at the time, and this happened. I'm gonna say 2015, and okay, they were having a beer stew up there across from my daughter's house, and all the guys wanted to go over there. So all of us girls were sitting there at the house right across the street, just kind of watching everything and talking and everything. So, anyways, we decided to leave about 2:30 in the morning. So, um, me and my daughter were driving in one car, and then the other people were riding behind us. We was heading back toward Evansville, and anyways, we started going over these hills, and like I said, it's about 2:30 in the morning. And me and my daughter are just talking, got the brights on. There's nobody else on the road. And we come over this hill, and as soon as we come over it, I was like, what is that? And this thing, it was black, very large. We wasn't that far from it. I'm going to say maybe 50 feet. And it looked like it was stooping at first. And then it jumped up. I seen one arm fly up, and then one step, and it was off the road. And me and my daughter just looked at each other and were like, what was that? And whatever it was, stepped off the road. But I mean, it was huge when it stood up. That was one of the other ones that had happened.
What color was that creature, and how tall
It
do you
was all
think it
black.
was? All black? Okay.
Yes.
How tall do you think it was?
I mean, oh goodness. It was larger than the height of the car. I'm going to say maybe around 7 feet.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay.
But when its arm went up, its arm went up like probably 3 feet higher than its head.
So it had long arms?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I kind of noticed first, because I thought it was going to take off flying, but it didn't.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
Yep. Continue with your story.
All righty. Well, the third one is it was actually a Black Panther account. It was my daughter's. And this happened in the same area, maybe a little bit closer to the Wabash River. But her husband was into hunting and all that, and they went out driving around the back roads, it's a bunch of woods, gravel roads. So they were driving around and just kind of mudding and dirting or whatever. They were in a truck, and she was looking out to I guess, her side of the window, which would have been the passenger side of the window. And he went across like a crossroads, And like I said, it was like gravel roads. And she happened to look out, and she said she seen a Black Panther just walking across the road. She said it was huge. And she said from head to tail, it was almost the size of the gravel road, which, I'm sure about a car length, a little bit wider. But that was kind of her sighting that she had seen. She had called me right after and told me what had happened. But she said, yes, it was a Black Panther.
Yeah, they're around. I hear a lot of stories about people seeing black cats all over the place.
Yeah, we had done a little research, and I guess they have been seen in this area before. So,
yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go into one. I'll tell you a little bit. My dad was a avid hunter. I didn't hear this story till after he had passed away, but my dad would never talk about anything like this. It was probably the 80s. He was like into wrestling too, but he was watching something on TV and, wrestling, and it had went off and this commercial come on. I think it was In Search of or something. they were saying something about Bigfoot. And he said, and I was standing behind him. He didn't know it, but anyways, it said something about do they exist? You know, Bigfoot, do they exist? And he said, "You're damn right they do." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Oh, not that, I was just kidding." You know, and he would never say anything. Years later, after my dad had passed, my cousin had went on a hunting trip with him, and this happened around the 70s. Which, after we were talking, we both realized that it was right after my dad just stopped hunting. So this would have probably been around 78. My grandmother, who lived down in Kentucky, which is probably about 45 minutes from here, she still lived in one of these old cabins that have like outhouses, you know, in the 70s. And everybody hated to go down to her house because you had to use the outhouse, and they just hated it. But anyway, she had a little cabin out back. It was just like a one-room cabin, and that's where they would stay when they would go hunting. So there was like my dad and his three brothers, and then my cousin's first hunting trip. And my cousin was the one that ended up telling me the story. So they were going to get up around 5 o'clock, get out there, put John, or, you know, John, my cousin, in a good spot since it was his first hunting trip. And they had said that about 4:30 in the morning, all the dogs that they had started scratching on the door. And John had went over and opened the door, and all these dogs just came running in. One of them was on a chain, and I mean, almost choked himself to get in the house or in the cabin. And he unleashed him and shut the door. And by this time, you know, the other three guys got up, and they had heard, now not too far from the cabin, between the cabin and my grandmother's place, there was a chicken coop. And so they started hearing these chickens go crazy about 30 minutes after that. And my dad's like, "Hey, get up and shine that flashlight as soon as I open this door at the chicken coop." He goes, "We probably got some coyotes out there." So they opened the door. My dad had his gun, and John shined the flashlight at the chicken coop, and he said whatever they caught was right in the belly. And they were about 3 feet up. You know, the cabin had stairs, and so they were about 3 feet up. And as he raised it up, he said that there was a Bigfoot standing there, and it had chickens in one hand that were hanging upside down, and some in the other, and it just growled at them. And then my dad's like, "Okay, back up." Shut the door. So they backed up, slammed the door shut, locked it. And John's like, "MC, why didn't you shoot it?" And he's like, "I wasn't going to shoot that damn thing. We would have just made it mad." So, but my dad never went hunting after that. And that's what me and my cousin were talking about. And I never realized. I knew he'd stopped going hunting. I never knew the reason why. I think that might have been it.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
Yeah, but when I talked to my cousin about this, he said that this thing was humongous. He said it was more of a red color. But he said in the face, actually, I mean, me and him like to talk about stuff like this, but he said that it had, the only thing he noticed is the lips, like the mouth was really big, like wide, but they were really thin lips.
Yeah, it sounds like a Sasquatch.
Yeah, he said that's what it was. He said he knows that's what it was. But yeah, my dad had stopped going hunting after that.
Yeah, and this is all in the same general location.
It was probably about 45 minutes. This happened in Kentucky, right around, I'm going to say, Central City.
Oh, okay.
I sent you the picture of my son going out mushroom hunting this spring.
In that track. Very cool.
Yes, there's actually four of them. There was four tracks altogether, and it led like into this gravel before it went back into the woods. But yeah, that was right outside of Evansville, Indiana, too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that looked like a pretty good track.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, his shoe is a 13, so I mean that looked quite a bit much. When he first sent it to me, I thought it was my grandson's foot, but yeah.
Yeah, that is cool.
Did you want me to go ahead and do the UFO stories?
Yeah, if you'd like to.
Okay, these started. Okay, I'll tell you one of the craziest ones. It was the 80s again. Um, Me and my sisters used to go to this dance place. It was from kids from 13 to 18 could go, and it was, they get out at 12 o'clock. And my sister had just turned 18. She was still going just because she knew a lot of friends there, and she was our driver. So, anyways, we had got home that night about probably about 12:30, and we kind of lived in it was a shotgun kind of house, and then but it also had an upstairs to it. Um, so when we came in, it was summer, so it was very hot. And I decided I was just going to sleep downstairs in the living room. And right above the living room was my older sister's room, and in the back of the house upstairs was my younger sister's room. So, anyways, I ended up falling asleep, and I had woke up to this red light, and I mean it was very bright, but it didn't look like it was. It just looked like it was coming from everywhere in the room. My first thought was that there was like someone outside with their brake lights on. And I just, for some reason, fell back asleep and didn't worry about it. So, anyways, I got up the next morning, and my other two sisters were in the kitchen, and they were in there talking about this red light that they had seen last night. And I was like, I seen that. And we were talking about it, and my younger sister, the one that had the room upstairs in the back, had said the exact same thing that I had said, that she thought it was brake lights, and went right back to sleep. And I was like, how are you going to see brake lights back there, upstairs? We got on that kind of subject. And then my older sister was sitting there just listening to us and wasn't saying much. And then she said, did you see anything else? And we was like, no, why? And I mean, it took forever for us to get it out of her. But she had said that when she woke up to these red lights, that she was paralyzed, that she couldn't move anything except for her eyes. And she'd remember seeing the alarm clock on the dresser, and it said like 2:15. And she said when she looked that way, she could see movement at the bottom of the bed. And it looked like three people, but they were little. And at this time, we had, I mean, we'd started laughing, and said something about, what'd you smoke last night? So, anyways, she would not talk about that. She would not ever, I mean, we just never really ever brought it up again until years later. Now, I had ended up moving to Arkansas, and we had lived way out. I'm talking about our nearest neighbor out there was like probably a mile down the road. And behind us, it was just like, I think they owned 189 acres. Our land was about 5 acres in front of the 198. And then across the road from us, which it was a gravel road, so we were way out, there was nothing but farmland as far as you could see. So, anyways, um, this was really crazy too. Both my sons ended up going and staying the night with one of their friends that night, and I had 5 dogs that were all in the house, and then I had 2 birds. Now, my ex-husband, he was a very big guy, and I mean, any kind of car or any kind of thing that would come out there if the dogs started barking, he was up. I mean, he was a very light sleeper. So, when no one was supposed to be out there because it was so far out. So, but anyways, um, I had woke up to my birds squealing. The dogs were all barking, and I just take off running through the house. And I got to my son's room, and which was before, I got to the kitchen and living room where the dogs were. And there was a light outside the window. Now, it had to be around 2 o'clock in the morning, if not 3. And this light was, I mean, I could see the grass outside. It was that bright. So I kind of stopped in my, place, and I backed up, and I was like, what is that? I was thinking this to myself. And then I turned back over to look out the window, and it was gone. Well, at the same time, my dogs stopped barking and the birds stopped chirping. So I went ahead and went into the kitchen where it was kind of a open floor, kind of. So I flipped on the kitchen light, and the dogs were all standing in the middle of the room. And they were just looking at me. And I looked over. When it first happened, I thought that the dogs had knocked over the bird cages and they were after the birds. That was my thought. But nothing had happened. I mean, the birds they were still fine in their cage. The dogs are in the middle of the room. And for some reason, I never even thought why my ex-husband did not wake up. I just went back in there and went to bed. And I still to this day don't know why I didn't wake him up or why he didn't wake up. But yes, that was really crazy.
Yeah.
The real bad ones happened in Arkansas, I can tell you. So after I moved back to Indiana, we would go down there and visit my in-laws who still lived out on this property. And so we went down there, and it was actually I'd taken my mother down, my oldest daughter, and then my grandson, who was only 2. So and when we stayed down there, they would pull out their real nice travel trailer so we could stay, and they called it their Hilton. It was a really nice one. And we would just stay there on on that land when we would come and visit. So, and like I said, it's really dark out there at night. You can hardly even see your hand in front of you. It's that dark. But we were there. My sons came over. My sons ended up staying down there. That was another reason why we went down there to visit. But so my sons came over to visit, and we were playing games and stuff. And my mom started getting tired, so she went in there and went to bed. And I had walked outside, and I was standing out there with my son. And he goes, "You remember them lights we used to see all the time?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "What's that?" And I looked over, and there was just this light in the sky. And we used to see them almost every night, me and my sons. And I was like, "Okay, it's time to go in." He goes, "Well, I got to leave." So he ended up leaving. My older son was still there. And it was probably about 11:30 at night. So I get kind of anxious when I talk about this stuff.
Oh, you're fine.
So anyways, me and my oldest son and my oldest daughter were there, and then my grandson. My mom was in the bedroom laying down. We were sitting there playing dominoes, and then my oldest son got up and he goes, "Well," he goes, "if you guys are going to get ready to go to bed, I'm going to leave." And I said, "No, you're not." I just told him he wasn't. And he kind of got the hint of what was going on, so he decided to stay. So, anyways, my daughter went into the bedroom where my mother was, and I lay down on the couch with my grandson, who was 2 at the time. And then my son went in and got a cot, and he kind of laid it right in front of me, and decided he was going to watch a movie, which then I felt okay. So, anyways, um, I ended up falling asleep. And then sometime during the night, I had woke up and it felt like a medium-sized person, like a small person, straddling me, like on my side. I was laying with my face toward the couch, the back of the couch. And I got really nervous and I was like, "Oh my God, they're after my grandson," which, I don't want to really say his name. And, but that was the feeling that was the first thing I thought. And then I felt what was felt like a hand on my head. And then I went back to sleep. So I woke up around 6 o'clock in the morning, and I mean, I jumped up, and my grandson was still there. And I was like, "Oh my gosh," so I hurried up and I went around my son. He was still asleep in the cot, and I walked out the front door. It was, the sun was just going to come up, and I was just like trying to figure out what happened last night. I mean, it was like I just woke up from this happening. And anyways, I wasn't outside for maybe just a few minutes trying to gather my thoughts, and my daughter came out, my oldest daughter. And she was standing there and she goes, "What's wrong?" I was like, "Oh, nothing. I was just thinking." And she goes, "I'm not staying here again." And I was like, "Why?" And she said, "Because," she goes, "I was asleep last night." And she goes, "I thought I felt somebody crawling on the bottom of the bed." And she goes, when I looked down, she goes, "I seen a shadow." And she goes, "I'm not staying here." So she was real nervous. But yeah, that was one of the times. Um, and I still don't know what happened. I mean, I have no idea. The second time we stayed down there, it was probably about 6 months after this. It was my other daughter, her husband, and um, the same grandson, and then she had an older daughter. So my oldest granddaughter was about 7 at the time, and then, like I said, my youngest one, he was the grandson. He was still around 2.5. So we had went down there. We was staying in the same spot, same place, and my daughter and her son wanted to go out with some friends, and they asked if I'd stay there and watch the kids, and I was like, "Sure, no problem." So we was, you know, doing a bunch of stuff. They were had some fireworks, and you can see for a long way down there in Arkansas when you're outside. So I'd walked outside with them. It was still probably around 9, 10 with my grandkids, and they could see fireworks. And my we kept pointing at the fireworks and everything, and my grandson, the one that was 2.5, he was pointing straight up, and I guess he thought it was a firework, but it was a light. And I was like, "Okay, it's time to go in." I just didn't want to deal with it. So I had went in, took the kids in there, and they were all, I mean, they were they were ready to lay down. So I put in like the Avengers, and they were sitting there watching it. They ended up going to sleep, and I ended up dozing off. So sometime in the morning, matter of fact, it was around, like I said, probably around same time, 2:33, because I know they got back a little bit after 3. I felt the the camper shaking, and I seen these lights, and that's it was so weird because I thought I thought my son-in-law and my daughter had already came in the camper. And then my son-in-law come over there and I handed him my grandson. And I looked at him and he looked distorted. And but I wasn't really thinking something. But the when the camper was shaking, I just thought it was them like in the bedroom moving around. And but I ended up falling back to sleep. And anyways, it couldn't have been that much longer. I had woke up and my grandson was actually at the bottom of the bed at this point. And I jumped up because I seen lights. And it was actually my daughter and my son. So I'm sitting there looking in the back room like, okay, what just happened here? I thought they were already there, but they were just pulling up. And it was probably about 3:15 in the morning. So I just jumped up and picked up the phone and I called my daughter and she goes, yeah, we just pulled up. It's us. And I was like, okay. So I ended up walking outside and they were telling me about their night and everything. And they could see something was wrong. And so I started explaining to them what happened. And then at this exact time that I was explaining this, my granddaughter woke up and she was laying like, I don't know, kind of on the couch. And anyway, she woke up and she was screaming that something was in her eyes. So we went in there and she wouldn't open her eyes. Like I said, she was around 7. And so we started like taking everything off the couch, looking at it. She still wouldn't open her eyes. She said there was ants in her eyes. And so we're looking, got the lights turned on, trying to find out what it was going on. And all of a sudden she just fell right back to sleep. And she does not remember this to this day. But we never did figure out why she did that. It was just really strange. But again, like I said, with my grandson, was just really strange. That all that happened. That was at the exact same spot. I'll go back one further, and my granddaughter, actually, she was 5 at the time, and I'd forgot all about this one. What had happened? This is before we moved from Arkansas, so this would have been probably around 2014. Let's see, I'm trying to think. Actually, it was about 2014. We had a really big house there. There was 6 bedrooms, but I had my bedroom in the back of the house. And my daughter, my son-in-law, and my granddaughter were all upstairs. But anyways, what had happened was I woke up and the back door, I had a door that led to like the back of the yard. It was open for some reason. But I went, checked in the house, through the house and anything. I didn't really have anything that I could remember happening that night. So I locked the door and just went back to bed. My granddaughter, the next morning, she was in there telling her mother, which is my daughter, that she had seen a little person standing in the hallway right by the stairs. And she had drew this being, and but the craziest thing that she said, that she drew an alien. Like one of the normal gray aliens. And at 5 years old, she wouldn't have known, what this thing looked like. But she said that she remembered it blinked sideways. And but at one point it was standing in front of her doorway. And when she noticed it, she had gotten down off of her bunk bed, and her mother's room was right across right across from hers. Um, she had gotten off of the bunk bed and went to the doorway, and she peeked out toward where the stair was, and it was standing like right by the stairs. And that's when she noticed it blink. And when she did, she ran right across, to her mother's room, shut the door, and went in there with them. But yeah, at 5 years old, she drew what looked like a gray alien. And I forgot completely all about that story.
Well, I appreciate you
But
sharing that with me.
yeah,
What do you think the lights are?
the lights.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's one of the things I was going to tell you too. When I finally got my sister to talk about what had happened to her in the 80s, my older sister, it wasn't until like 2015. Like I said, this happened in the 80s. And she said, "Don't you remember when we used to play with those lights and when we lived in Kentucky?" And I was like, it just kind of hit me. I was like, "Oh my God, I do. We used to play with these lights that were in our bedroom when we were younger." And anyways, my sister had ended up telling me that she was abducted. She thinks she was abducted, but at 10 times that year in the 80s. And that every time before she would be abducted, she would know because she would have like a panic attack, and then she would get real tired and go to sleep. But there was a lot of other things that happened with her that was very strange. Um, I don't know if I should talk about those.
No, that's
But
fine.
yeah.
Do you think the alien activity was connected to the Bigfoot sighting and the dog creature that you saw?
Um, since I do, as far as the Bigfoot, because like I said, well, we seen lights like the night of the beer stube. We did see lights that night. Now with the dog man, I don't know. I don't know if it was. I mean, I just know I've been seeing these pretty much all my life, and I I don't know. I do think they were kind of connected with Bigfoot, though. Yes.
Okay. And you've been having these encounters and experiences since what age? Did you say you're like 12?
They started. No. My first encounter actually happened in Kentucky when I was probably about 5 years old.
Okay, yeah, 5. So yeah, pretty
Yes.
much all your life you've been having these strange experiences, and you've been trying
Yes.
to find an
And I
answer.
mean, later when we actually said something to my mother, we found out that she actually had experiences with both, but which we never knew about. But we had talked about, a couple of encounters that
Y-
we had had.
yeah, it's strange how certain family
It's
members will have these same experiences, and I think they're connected to it in some way, or it's attracted to them.
something. I did also forget to tell you about one we had that happened in 2015, and this happened in St. George Island, Florida. And actually, um, there was a bunch of people that it was on some forum on, you could Google it, but I can't find it anymore. Um, but in 2015, it was June 2nd, 3rd. Like I said, St. George Island, Florida. We were right across the street from the ocean. And this, I mean, I've got video and actually a picture of this. But me and my mother were sitting outside. This is actually when we found out about each other's encounters. That's what made me think of it. But we were sitting outside on the porch right across from the ocean. And I kept seeing this red light up in the sky. I was like, what is that? And Mom was like, I don't know. So, I mean, we're just sitting out on the porch. It was probably around 9, 10 o'clock at night, and we were just talking. But it kept coming on, and then it would go off, and then it would come on, and it would go off. And I um, finally I was like, all right, I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna get my phone and I'm gonna record this thing. So I went in, got my phone, come back out, and we were sitting there, and we was waiting for this light to come back on. And when it did, it came on. It there was a light at top. It was a red light, and it come on first, and then the 8 other lights came on, almost in like a staircase pattern. And there was 4 going one way and 4 going the other. And I thought I was recording, but I actually took a picture, which I'm glad I did because the picture came out better than the video did. But I took a picture and then I started recording it. By the time I got recording it, it had already started going out. And my mother, she was still sitting there. She was just watching it. And I looked, when it went out, I looked at her and I said, can you believe that? And before I got that out of my mouth, it was all the way down at the end of the island in the same formation. I mean, it was that fast. And I mean, it was, but yeah, I did get a video and, like I said, a picture of that. And that was on, I can't remember. You used to be able to Google it and it would just come up and there was a lot of people's stories. So we had eyewitnesses, and actually there was a guy walking across the street from the beach, and he said, did you guys see that? And I was like, yeah. And I said, what was it? He goes, I don't know, but I'm ex-military and I can tell you there's no ships and no planes out there. And he was walking by with 2 kids. So, but yeah, there was a lot of stories on this. It was some kind of alien or UFO website, and I had actually ended up putting my and my mom's story on there with the picture and the video, and someone had taken it off.
Yeah, yeah, that is interesting. And people have been seeing these strange lights for a long time now.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. So in 2000, it's probably 2014. It was springtime. I was babysitting my grandson again, and he was real little. I was out front, and he started getting tired, so I just sat him in my lap, and we kind of laid back in one of them lawn chairs. And this is in the middle of the day. I'm talking probably about between 12 and 2, um, in the afternoon. And I'm sitting there and I had my head back and I was just kind of relaxing because he was going to sleep. And I got this feeling, it was almost like a sound, a whooshing sound, kind of. And I opened my eyes, because my head's kind of facing up. And right above me was this metallic, round, circular ball. That's all I can say. It was probably about 20 foot above the tree, which, I mean, we had a really large oak in the yard. So I jump up. Of course, I got, my grandson in my arms, and I hollered inside for my daughter's mother-in-law. She was in there doing something, but she came running out with her son. And I was like, what is that? And by this time, it had already started moving, almost following the street, kind of. So they're sitting there looking at it and they're like, I don't know. So we watched this thing go all the way down the road, just almost in a straight line. And then it just went toward the right. I mean, but it went so fast. I mean, it's almost like it disappeared. But I mean, it was a metallic ball. And I'm going to say it was maybe the size of a Volkswagen. So yeah, that was one thing that happened. And then later on, it was probably fall that same year. um, my daughter's husband's brother came in town, and he was staying with us for a few days, and he was out with some friends one night, and like behind our yard, um, we have like a bunch of land. It's just unfarmed land. I mean, just grass, and then behind that is like a bunch of woods. So, anyways, he had got home. I guess it was around 2:30, or got there at my house at 2:30 in the morning. We had left the back door unlocked for him because he was just visiting. He didn't have keys. So he walked in the backyard and he was sitting there smoking a cigarette. And he said he got this funny feeling, and he looked over in the field, and he said he seen what it looked like a disc shape was sitting in the field with these lights all the way around. And he got really scared and ran in the house and actually woke up his brother and started telling him about it. They looked out there, and by that time it was gone. But yeah, that was sitting right behind our house. And like I said, that would happen around fall the same year. But then I'm pretty sure it was winter of 2017. I had let my dog out back, and there's a school that's like up on the hill behind our house. I mean, you can't see the school, but you can see where the hill is. And as soon as I let my dog out, the door is like facing in that direction. And I started seeing these, um, they were kind of an amber looking light. Um, and I mean, it was freezing outside. It was probably maybe 17 degrees. And all of a sudden I started seeing these amber lights. They they looked like they was coming off of the school roof, is what they looked like to me.
What'd you see? Sorry, you kind of cut out there.
Do I?
What'd you say you saw? You kind of cut out a little bit when you
Oh,
said
I'm sorry.
what you saw.
There was like 4 or 5 lights. It kind of looked like it was raising off of the roof of the school. And I mean, they just kept going up and going very slow. I had called for my granddaughter because she was closest to me to come look at it. And we was watching this thing, and it started moving toward the south. So I mean, my other daughter, she's like, "Oh, it's just those with the Chinese lanterns or whatever." I was like, "There's no way no one's up there lighting off these Chinese lanterns." But anyways, the next morning there was I guess a lot of people had seen this, so it was on the news and everything. So yeah, that was another thing. Um, Trying to think. I'm back to the Sasquatch. I forgot to tell you. I know I wrote it to you. That's why I thought I had told you. But um, when I was still living in Kentucky, this had to be around 1974. We was like I said, we was living around between Greenville and Central City, Kentucky. And right behind our house, we had a great big house, um, well, great big yard, and we had these shrubs that covered the whole front, and then we had like this little U for a driveway, and behind our house, we had probably about, I'm gonna say altogether around 5 acres. That was our yard. And then there was some horses that belonged to the owner of the house that was behind there. So there was a great big field and then some woods after that. And one of the things I was going to tell you is me and all 4 of us girls, we have a room of our own, and but we were all like, I think 5 or 4 through 10, something like that. So my sister slept in one bed, and then me and my younger sister slept in another bed. Um, and they were the head of the bed like faced toward the window, so toward the wall. And anyways, I was laying there one night, and I always had a problem trying to go to sleep. I don't know why, but I always did. But I had rolled over, and like I said, I'm between 4 and 5 at this time, and I seen this man's face in the window, and it looked like, when I look at it, it looks like blood was running down his face, but it wasn't red, so it almost, I don't know. It didn't look like a real man either. It looked like a very large man. But anyways, I had ran into the living room and I was screaming, and I told my mom and dad there was a guy looking through the window. Well, my dad had got the gun and he had went outside and looked around the house and everything. He took our dog with him and he couldn't find anything. And he come in and asked me where the guy was standing and everything. And he said, yeah, he said, that's the guy. He goes, I don't know what you're seeing. He said, you must have been dreaming, because we had a very high window and there's no way that a man could be standing in that window. But like now, when I started thinking about it, it was actually years ago. uh, It it looked more like hair when I think about it now, than it did blood. But maybe at the time, that's the only thing I could associate that in being in its face. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, that was strange. But a couple days later, um, we had gotten home from going into town or something, but our dog that we had, he was walking around the house. I mean, he just kept walking around the house, and he wouldn't answer to us or anything. My dad thought he maybe got hit by a car, but there was no sign of that. But this dog walked around the house all day long. He wouldn't, look at you when you hollered at him or anything. And yeah, he did it all the way until later that evening when he finally come up on the porch and laid down. But the only thing that my dad could figure is he had some kind of head injury. So uh, that's another thing that happened. I mean, that was just a couple days after that, if not the next day. So it was just really strange. But I know that the guy that owned those horses ended up moving those because he had a couple of them that were getting killed. So yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to let you know. Um,
Okay. I appreciate that, Sherry. So you think the figure that was looking through the window was possibly a Sasquatch?
yeah, I believe it is. I mean, even when I saw it, I can still see this face today. And I mean, even when I saw it, I could tell it wasn't really a man. It looked like a man. It really did. But his lips were really, really thin and long. And his mouth was a little bit open. I could see teeth. Um, but the eyes on they were real, real far apart from what I can remember. And I mean, he was just staring right at me. And I think, maybe because I rolled over. But I mean, it scared me, of course, because I just knew it was a man in the window. And I'm thinking that maybe his hair was in his face, is what I was considering with my young mind. You know what I'm saying? That it was blood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I understand. Um, with the information that you told me off air,
Uh huh.
can I well, I don't know how to say it without blowing what you said. You knew somebody who had an unknown pregnancy, and do you think that's connected to the Sasquatch phenomenon, like the beings that are out in the woods, all the different cryptids? Is that kind of why you relayed that to me? I don't know if I said too much there. Tell me if I did, and I can cut that out.
No, I'm wondering if it, I mean, didn't have something to do with the UFO stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like the UFO
Yes.
activity, the visits at nighttime, and the genetical experiments. That could be a possible explanation to the cryptid phenomenon, perhaps.
Yes. I mean, I do think it all has to do. I mean, they all are connected somehow.
Hmm. Yeah, I think so too. Now, what's your theory on the Sasquatch activity as a whole? Do you think it's connected to the Bible, or do you think it's something entirely different? What do you think?
Mm, I don't know. I mean, I think these beings have been around here for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an I do genealogy too, and I mean, I've read stories going back to the early 1700s. Not looking for them, just reading through like old newspapers. It was a page long, and I've read where one lady said that a bear come in and picked up both of her hogs and walked out, or over the fence and out into the woods, and that was in a newspaper that I read in Virginia in the 1700s. That's when I really started getting into them, was back in like at this time, and I started thinking back at certain things that had happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they've just been around for a long time. I'm not sure if I would call them the Nephilim.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, somebody, I think it might have been on your show, you was talking about some red-headed giants.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've heard about those, and they don't. I don't think they're the same beings. I
Yeah,
think
they
these
could be
are
different.
totally different. Yes, and I'm thinking that they might be the Nephilim.
Yeah.
These red-headed giants.
Yeah, very well could be.
Now, with UFOs, do you know what they are? And what is your?
Mm, I mean, I do. I'm kind of half and half. I think that there's like a demonic presence to the activity as far as how it lines up with a lot of paranormal activity. But on the
Mhm.
other end, the universe is so huge that we can't really comprehend what's really out there.
Right. I mean that. Yes, that's true. But I mean, I don't feel anything good about the UFO sightings. I never have. When I do have these experiments sometimes, or experiences sometimes, um, I usually have a migraine the next day. Um, when I see these lights, or the other things that's happened.
Hmm. Yeah, I heard a story where a guy had an encounter. He turned it into the police, and government officials or whatever followed up with him, and these people with hazmat suits showed up and like sprayed him down. That was like one of the first things they did, was like gave him a hardcore spray and like made him take off all his clothes and like washed him down. So there could be like radiation exposure, other things, that we don't know about.
Hmm. Yes, and yeah, I mean, I do kind of believe. I mean, I know there's something because, like, after finally getting my sister to talk about her experiences,
Hmm.
she's the only other one in my family that actually has migraines. And it seems like she would have them at the same time. That she had one of her experiences.
Yeah. Sherry, before I let you go, can you describe the swooshing sound that you heard before you saw the metal round object above the oak tree?
It was, I'm trying to think.
Was it like slow motion or like
Yeah, it sounded like maybe a slow motion. I don't even know.
a fan in slow motion? Maybe like it was a ceiling
Maybe,
fan
or
or
just
something?
some kind of vibration. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah, 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 I know what you mean. I had a strange alien experience where I woke up one night and I was wide awake out of the blue, like at 3 in the morning, and I noticed I couldn't move my body. The only thing I could move were my eyeballs and my breathing, my lungs. And I
Yeah,
looked
definitely.
over, and there was like this little gray being, looked just like a gray, staring down at me. And I mean, it had no expression on its face, nothing. It was just looking down at me. And then I started to panic. I tried to break free. I tried to move, and I couldn't. I tried as hard as I could to get up from the bed to get out of the situation, but there was there was nothing that was going to help me. And then I realized the fan, because I used to sleep with the fan next to me, I could hear it, and it was in slow motion. It was oscillating like super slow, and it was like
Hmm.
like real
Maybe, yeah,
slow.
that's kind of what it sounded like.
Hmm.
That's exactly what it kind of sound like.
Yeah, and all of a sudden I was able to break free, and whatever was standing next to me was gone. People said it was sleep paralysis, but I mean, when that happened, I was fully conscious, like aware. I could feel, I could think, I could see around my room. Like I was awake.
Hmm.
So it's hard
Yeah,
to
that's
say.
exactly what my sister said. I mean, she said the exact, but there was three beings at the bottom of the bed.
Hmm. Were they the shorter ones or like taller?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. She said they were very small, like maybe about between 3.5 feet.
yeah.
But
One
yeah.
one thing that's strange about the activity is these orbs that show up in people's houses. They see like these bright lights, and same with like the Sasquatch activity. People see the bright lights,
Hmm.
or the
Yes.
UFOs. People see like these bright lights, and they're all very similar, and they seem to have an intelligence behind them. They're very self aware, and they want to remain hidden. But I think that's like the origin of everything that's manifesting. That's just my theory, but
Uh-huh.
it seems to be everywhere. The orbs, the lights.
Yes, and I mean we see a lot of those. And according to my sister, I mean I kind of remember playing with them. She remembers playing with lights in the bedroom, that one that I was talking about where I'd seen the face. It was that same bedroom. And I mean, when she said something, it kind of like almost a flashback. I was like, oh my God, I do remember playing with these balls of light in our room. We all used to, all four of us. But I
Hmm.
don't remember ever my mom or dad seeing them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, paranormal researchers say that kids are more sensitive to paranormal activity, and
Hmm.
I don't know. That could
Oh,
be an
I do
explanation.
believe that.
Yeah. Um, do you feel like it's dangerous? You said yes earlier, like there's something bad behind it,
I
right?
don't feel like, yeah, I don't feel like it's a good thing, especially like, honestly, my true opinion, I think that I'm not sure if the ones like starting in 2013 that I've seen, even down in Arkansas,
Mm-hmm.
my grandson was always with me. So I almost wonder sometimes if it wasn't because of him. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. So it's never
Uh,
like a feeling of like an angel of God showed up or you met Jesus.
no.
It's something dark, right? Your gut tells you
Yes.
it's something bad. And that's what the Native Americans said too, that these things are evil spirits, whether it's the cryptids, the alien UFO phenomenon, or just paranormal activity in
Yes.
general, that it's
I
all
just
evil.
don't get a good feeling
Hmm.
at all.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, if I do know that if evil can do that, maybe good can too. Like if there's bad entities that show up as like beings of light, I'd have to imagine the good ones do too. So it's hard to tell
Right.
the
I mean,
difference.
yes, I think it is,
Hmm.
very hard to tell the difference. But like I said, I just never gotten a good feeling about it.
Yeah, it seems like there's something going on at a quantum level behind the scenes, and people aren't aware of it, and it's happening right underneath their noses.
Yeah, but and I'm not even for sure if these beings are outside our solar system or if they're not right here on Earth and haven't been here for a long time. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, maybe soon the veil will be lifted.
Yeah, they are talking about it a little bit more, so maybe.
Hmm. Okay, sure. Well, I appreciate you getting in contact with me and sharing all that information. I know it wasn't easy to do, and relaying
No.
information like that takes a leap of faith. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, you're the first one I've ever told, so I had to tell somebody. I feel a little bit better.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate the story, and I was really getting a lot of all the details. I was sitting there listening intently, and there was a lot of details and descriptions that you gave that really made me think.
Yeah. Yeah, I really don't know, where to take it from here. I mean, but if I ever see anything anymore, I'll for sure let you know, which I'm sure I will.
Okay. Yeah, if something crazy happens, let me know because I want to hear more about what happens with these events, whether you get abducted or, like it
No, I
all
don't
ends. I
want to
hope you
know
don't.
nothing about that.
Yeah, I hope you don't. But I'm saying, like, if something extreme happens, I would like to know because of all the details you've already told me, and it would really help piece the puzzle together, especially if you saw a Bigfoot or had some type of encounter. Definitely contact me.
Okay. Well, yeah, if I get those medical records, I'll let you know, though.
Okay.
I'll send you a copy of them.
Yeah, that sounds good. And if I find someone good for you to talk to, I'll get you in touch with them in the future.
Okay, sounds great.
All right, Sherry. Well, you enjoy your Sunday, and it was really good speaking with you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. You have a good one.
Bye.
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 All right, thank you so much, Sherry, and that was certainly a list of strange encounters. I feel like the lights that you guys seen was possibly a UAP over the house, and it could have been something paranormal. I've heard of these lights just shining in people's houses late at night, and there's no alien ship around, to my knowledge anyways. The canine creature that you encountered, I also think it possibly could be a hellhound. I hear stories here in the Ozarks and in many other regions of the United States of these large canine creatures. There seems to be different mutations, and I think it could all be tied into this alien phenomenon, but still I believe it to be demonic in nature. So we'll have to find out in the future. Thank you everyone for watching. Be safe and take care.